The ballroom shimmered like a scene pulled from a fairy tale. Candlelight danced across crystal glasses. Laughter bubbled in corners. Silk gowns swept past velvet chairs. And somewhere deep inside, Rachel Harris reminded herself to smile. She stood near the back wearing sapphire blue. Not too bold, not too plain, something safe, because safe was all she had ever been allowed to be. Her younger sister Sophia, radiant in white, sat at the head table glowing like the center of a universe that Rachel had never truly belonged to. Then the sound of a spoon tapping glass, gentle, rhythmic, intentional. Their mother, Eleanor Harris, stood, elegant, composed, champagne flute in hand. "Everyone expects the usual mother of the bride speech," she began, voice steady and smooth. "But tonight I'd like to raise this glass to both of my daughters." Murmurs rippled. Rachel's smile faded just slightly. Her stomach tightened. Eleanor continued, "One of my daughters shines so brightly she lights up every room. But the other, well, she has lived in the shadows for far too long." Rachel blinked. Once, twice. Across the room, Sophia's smile tightened. "My eldest daughter, Rachel," Eleanor said, turning toward her, "has endured more than most people will ever know." Then, the sentence that shattered everything. "And I cannot stay silent anymore." The glass slipped from Rachel's hand. It hit the table's edge, shattered, and so did the illusion of the perfect family. The champagne flute slipped from Rachel's hand. It struck the edge of the table, then shattered. The music stopped. The laughter froze in midair. You could hear the silence echo through the room like a heartbeat skipped. All eyes turned to Eleanor, to Sophia, to Rachel. Eleanor didn't blink. "She sabotaged her own sister's career," she said, her voice low but cutting. "She seduced her fiancé, and," she glanced down the table, "she even hired someone to tamper with Rachel's apartment, forcing her to move out." Gasps. Chairs shifted. Someone dropped a fork. Rachel stood completely still. James, Sophia's new husband, turned slowly toward the woman he had just vowed forever to. "Is this true?" His voice cracked on the last word. Sophia's expression flickered. Just for a second. Then she laughed, cold, hollow. "My mother's clearly had too much champagne," she said, brushing a curl from her cheek. "She doesn't know what she's talking about." But no one was laughing with her, because in that moment, everyone saw it. Not in Eleanor, not in James, but in Rachel's eyes. Not surprise, not confusion, but pain. The pain of someone who had suspected the truth for too long and was finally being forced to face it. Before the toast. Before the shattered glass. Before the lies came undone. There was always this. Rachel was the good one, the quiet one, the achiever, the dependable daughter. Sophia, she was the star. Even as kids, the difference was clear. Sophia was sparkles and sunshine. Rachel was structure and silence. At 8, Sophia won a local beauty pageant, and her photo went up in the living room. At 15, Rachel won a statewide science competition, and her certificate stayed in a drawer. When Sophia got her first job offer in marketing after college, Eleanor threw a party at the country club. 50 guests, champagne, a catered brunch. When Rachel was accepted into medical school, they ordered pizza and watched TV while she opened the acceptance letter alone. No one meant to be cruel, but the message was always the same. Of course Rachel succeeded. That's what she does. But Sophia, now she surprises us. The spotlight never had room for two. So Rachel learned how to glow quietly in the shadows. And whenever she brought it up, her mother would laugh softly and say, "Rachel, not everything is a competition." And her father, he would sigh and change the subject. The unraveling didn't start with a bang. It started with quiet and questions Rachel couldn't quite answer. Why had her promotion fallen through at the very last minute? The board had received anonymous concerns about her conduct. Nothing concrete. Nothing traceable. Just enough to cast doubt. And Nathan, her fiancé, he had ended things 2 months later, out of the blue. I don't know if we're right for each other, he had said, unable to meet her eyes. Something just doesn't feel right anymore. No affair, no fight, no reason, just distance. And through it all, there was Sophia, with perfect timing, with comforting hugs, supportive texts, and whispered reassurance. You're too good for that hospital anyway. Nathan didn't deserve you. You'll come out of this stronger. She always showed up exactly when Rachel needed someone. She always knew. But how? How did Sophia always appear just as the storm hit? How did she know when Rachel's life was about to fall apart? It didn't feel like coincidence anymore. It felt calculated. And beneath the comfort, a chill began to spread through Rachel's gut. Rachel didn't go back to her parents' house after the wedding. She couldn't. Instead, she checked into a quiet hotel on the edge of town, alone, sleepless, her heart still pounding from the wreckage of the night before. That toast, that silence, that look in Sophia's eyes, something inside her had snapped, and now she needed answers. Not guesses, not instincts, proof. She opened her laptop at 2:11 a.m., pulled up her old email archives, checked message histories she hadn't reviewed in years, bank accounts, cloud storage, voicemail backups. What started as a desperate act of insomnia turned into something else entirely, because within hours she found it, a pattern. An email from a generic Gmail address to a hospital board member named Dr. Lawrence Farrow. The message was just vague enough to be dangerous. You should look into Dr. Rachel Harris. Word is she's reckless under pressure. Rumor has it there was a near miss with a patient last fall. No name, no sender photo, but Rachel knew that phrasing. She knew that tone. She had heard it in whispers her entire life. She had heard it in Sophia. And it wasn't just one message. There were more, several, each sent weeks before her promotion was canceled, each designed to raise quiet questions, just enough to smear her name. Rachel's fingers trembled, and in the mirror across the room, she saw something that hadn't been there before. Not confusion, but clarity and fury. Rachel wasn't sure why she called him. Maybe she needed closure. Maybe she needed to hear the truth from someone else's mouth. Maybe she just needed to know if she'd imagined it all. But when Nathan agreed to meet at a quiet cafe near the hospital, she knew one thing. She wasn't crazy. They sat across from each other at a small table. Rachel's coffee grew cold before she even touched it. Nathan looked nervous, older, not in years, but in guilt. I never meant to hurt you, he said softly. Then he looked down at the table, ashamed. Sophia told me things. She said you didn't really love me, that you were too focused on your career, that I was just convenient. Rachel said nothing. She only stared. She said she saw how distant you were, that maybe you were cheating, that maybe I deserved someone who actually saw me. He exhaled, rubbing his temples. And when I started doubting, she was right there, checking on me, bringing me coffee, listening. There was a pause. It wasn't physical, not at first, but we met for drinks a few times, talked about you. She always made it seem like she was just worried, like she was helping us. Then his voice cracked. But looking back, it was manipulation, all of it. Rachel finally spoke. So it started before we broke up. He nodded, slowly, shamefully. I'm sorry, Rachel. I should have seen it, but I was lonely, and she was there. Rachel stood, left her untouched coffee behind. She didn't need to yell, because the truth had already screamed loud enough. Rachel hadn't thought about the account in years. It was a shared savings account opened by their mother when Rachel was in college. Just something for emergencies, Eleanor had said. One account, two names, Sophia's and Rachel's. But Rachel rarely touched it. She had her own career, her own bank, and honestly, she had forgotten it existed until she started digging. One login, a few clicks. And her breath caught in her throat. Withdrawal after withdrawal, small amounts, never enough to trigger alarms, but regular, consistent, calculated. $200 here, $150 there. Over time, it added up to thousands. Years of quiet theft, right under her name, all authorized, all signed Sophia. Rachel scrolled through the history, frozen. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, then clenched into fists. It wasn't just sabotage anymore. It was stealing. Not just love, not just trust, but money. It was betrayal in its most tangible form. And the worst part, Rachel would have given it to her if she had just asked. He didn't look surprised when she asked to meet. He just looked tired. Philip Harris, the man who had always chosen peace over truth, sat across from his daughter at a quiet cafe in downtown Boston. Rachel didn't waste time. "I need you to tell me the truth," she said, not as a father trying to keep the family together, but as a man who's watched this unfold for far too long. He looked away, out the window, anywhere but at her. "Your mother wasn't wrong at the wedding," he finally said, "just reckless." Rachel's breath caught. She leaned in, eyes sharp, voice calm. "You knew what Sophia did?" He hesitated, then nodded, slowly. "I didn't know everything, not about Nathan or the apartment, but I saw how she treated you. I saw your mother cover for her, and I chose to stay quiet." Silence. Then Rachel asked the question she hadn't planned to ask. "Is Sophia really your daughter?" Philip closed his eyes, as if bracing for an impact he'd delayed for decades. "No," he whispered, "she's not." The words hung in the air like a verdict. "Your mother had an affair with a business partner. She got pregnant, and I stayed." Rachel's hands trembled under the table. He continued, "We agreed to raise Sophia as our own. No one else ever knew, not even Sophia. But Eleanor, she always treated her differently, like she owed her something." He swallowed hard. "And I let her, because I thought it was the only way to hold the family together." Rachel's voice cracked. "By sacrificing me?" He didn't respond. "Because some truths don't have answers." Grandma Martha didn't raise her voice. She never did. But what she said that night shook Rachel more than anything else. They were sitting in the garden, warm tea, soft wind, and a silence that had waited years to be broken. Rachel spoke first. "Was Mom always like this, with Sophia and me, or did something change her?" Martha looked out into the roses, then quietly answered, "No, sweetheart, she didn't change. She became what she saw." Rachel furrowed her brow. "What do you mean?" Martha sighed, not out of tiredness, but sorrow. "Your mother grew up in a house where love was competition. Her own mother, your great-grandmother, always favored Eleanor's sister Ruth." She paused. "Eleanor was the strong one, the responsible one. Ruth was the darling, the soft one, the one who got rescued. I watched it happen, and I think your mother learned one thing. If you want love, you must earn it. And if you want peace, don't ask too many questions." Rachel felt her stomach tighten. "So," she repeated the cycle. "Yes," Martha nodded, "and maybe she didn't even realize it." "And now," Rachel whispered, "I've spent my whole life being the strong one, just like her." Martha reached out and took her hand. "The pain didn't start with you, but maybe, just maybe, it can end with you." Rachel didn't cry, not this time. She just nodded slowly as the wind rustled the trees around them, because in that moment, she knew she wasn't just fighting Sophia, She was fighting a legacy, and she would be the one to break it. Rachel didn't scream. She didn't post on social media. She didn't confront Sophia in front of cameras. Instead, she documented receipts, deleted messages she recovered, email headers that traced anonymous tips back to Sophia's IP, a voice recording of Sophia bragging at a bar, not knowing someone nearby was recording her. "Rachel's too soft," Sophia had laughed. "You just have to twist the knife once and she folds." Rachel listened to that clip every night for a week, not to feel pain, but to stay focused. Because what she was doing now wasn't revenge, it was correction. She also didn't go directly to Sophia's husband. No, she went to the people who would matter more. One afternoon, dressed professionally but with fire in her veins, Rachel rang the doorbell of the Hamilton estate. Victoria Hamilton, Sophia's grandmother-in-law, answered with a guarded look. "Mrs. Hamilton," Rachel said calmly, "I believe you care deeply about the legacy of this family. I need just 20 minutes of your time, and your trust." They sat in the conservatory. Rachel pulled out her folder. Not with rage, with precision. Then Margaret, Sophia's sister-in-law, walked in midway through the meeting. She listened, then asked only one question. "Do you have proof?" Rachel opened a second folder. Margaret didn't say a word. She simply nodded. Then she looked to Victoria and said, "We need to talk to James, alone." Rachel Rose collected her papers and simply said, "Thank you for being willing to listen. I didn't come here to destroy Sophia. I came to protect the people she hasn't hurt yet." And she walked out. No mic drop, no victory dance, just quiet and control. The Hamiltons hosted Christmas like royalty. Candlelight flickered, crystal clinked, laughter echoed down the marble halls. Rachel wore red, not festive red, but the kind of red you wear when you're walking into battle. Victoria had arranged everything. The table was set for 15, 3 generations, dozens of secrets, 1 projector. Rachel waited until dessert. James had just lifted his wine glass when Victoria tapped her fork to hers. "Before we end the night," she said sweetly, "Rachel has something important to share." The room went still. Rachel stood, walked to the side wall, clicked the remote. The projector hummed to life. Slide 1, a screenshot of a fake hospital complaint signed by a concerned citizen but traced to Sophia's email. Slide 2, bank withdrawals, Sophia's handwriting. Slide 3, a voice memo, Sophia's voice, crystal clear. Rachel's too busy saving lives to notice her own being destroyed. That's the funny part. Slide after slide, the air got thicker. Sophia stood up, red-faced. "This is insane. You're all falling for this." She turned to James. "Say something." But James was staring at the screen, frozen. Then, without a word, he reached for his ring, slid it off, laid it on the table, and stood up. "I need space. From you. From all this." Sophia tried to grab his arm, but he stepped back. Victoria closed her eyes. Margaret didn't speak. Rachel didn't gloat. She just clicked the final slide. It was a transcript of a phone call between Sophia and Eleanor. Sophia, she doesn't deserve the spotlight. She's boring. Always has been. Eleanor, you're just saying what no one has the guts to admit. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. Absolute. Rachel turned off the projector, gathered her things. "Merry Christmas," she whispered, and she left. 3 weeks after the Christmas dinner that shattered everything, Rachel received a letter, an official envelope, from the hospital board. She read it once, then again, then she sat down, and for the first time in months, she smiled. "We offer our sincerest apologies for the internal oversight. The board unanimously agrees to reinstate Dr. Rachel Hartman as head of neurological research." It was more than a title. It was a restoration of truth, of integrity, of everything that Sophia had tried and failed to erase. Rachel didn't celebrate with champagne. She signed the contract, closed her laptop, and drove to a quiet real estate agency just outside the city. A week later, she closed on a modest 2-story house with a sunroom and a garden in the back. Not flashy, but peaceful, safe, hers. She invited one person to live with her, her grandmother Martha. "If I'm rebuilding," Rachel had said, "I want to start with someone who always believed in me, even when I didn't." Their first breakfast in the new home, just toast, tea, and silence. The kind of silence that doesn't hurt, the kind that heals. It started with a coffee. Not fate. Not fireworks. Just coffee. Dr. Adrian Cho had once spoken up for Rachel when she was being quietly pushed out of the hospital. He wasn't loud, he wasn't dramatic, but he had said one sentence during that closed-door meeting: "You're making a mistake, and the data proves it." Months passed. Seasons changed. Then one rainy afternoon, he knocked on her office door, holding 2 cups. "I thought you might need a break." That break became a conversation. Then lunch. Then a walk through the botanical garden. Adrian wasn't dazzling. He didn't try to impress. But when Rachel spoke, he listened, like her words mattered. And when silence came, he stayed, like her quiet wasn't uncomfortable. One evening, Rachel asked, "Why me?" He smiled, "Because you never pretended to be okay." That night, Rachel realized she didn't need grand gestures. She needed truth, safety, and someone who saw her, not her titles, not her scars, just her. Their love wasn't flashy, but it was real, and for the first time in a long time, Rachel allowed herself to believe. She could build something beautiful, not despite everything she'd been through, but because of it. The envelope was pale blue, no name on the front, just Rachel's address in neat handwriting. She hesitated before opening it. Inside, a letter. Short, stiff, but raw. "Rachel, I'm in therapy now. I've been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. My doctor says it's not curable, but manageable. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I just want to understand you, if you'll let me." Rachel stared at the page for a long time. She didn't feel satisfaction, not anger, not even sadness, just quiet. Then she picked up a pen and wrote back, "Sophia, I don't need an apology. I need truth. If you truly want to understand me, we'll talk, but it will be in front of a licensed therapist, not as sisters, but as 2 people trying to break a pattern before it breaks us both." She folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, stamped it, sent it. Then she turned off her phone, boiled water, and made tea for herself and Grandma Martha. Some conversations can wait, but when they come, they'll be on her terms. It was a small gathering, no orchestra, no photographers, just people who mattered. The garden behind Rachel's new home was blooming with lavender and rosemary. A string of soft lights glowed overhead. Laughter drifted through the dusk. There was Grandma Martha sipping tea, Dr. Adrian quietly placing extra napkins. Colleagues from the neurology department, the ones who had believed her, stood by her. A couple of old friends from med school, one of whom flew in just for this. And Rachel, wearing a simple navy blue dress, stood up with a glass of white wine. She smiled, but it wasn't just polite, it was whole. She raised her glass. To the daughter who learned that family isn't built on blood, but on truth, on love, and on the courage to walk away from lies. There were no loud cheers, just a quiet clinking of glasses and the kind of silence that feels like peace. For the first time, Rachel didn't look over her shoulder. She didn't wonder who was watching, who was judging. She was here. She was home. She was loved for who she was, not for who she tried to be. And that was enough. Rachel didn't go to the hearing. She didn't sit in the courtroom. Didn't watch Sophia face the financial consequences. Didn't glance at headlines when they appeared online. She didn't need to. That chapter, the one with shadows and sharp edges, was already closed. She spent that morning walking barefoot through her garden. Her hands smelled of rosemary and earth. At noon, she made tea for Grandma Martha. They laughed about nothing and everything. That same afternoon, a friend from the hospital brought a sketch, a new project proposal. Rachel smiled, signed it, and just like that, she returned to her life. Not the life Sophia tried to destroy, but the one Rachel rebuilt, stronger, simpler, and entirely her own. No, this story didn't end with applause. It ended with a quiet exhale, a soft smile, and a peace no one could take away again. Not everyone who shares your blood is your family. And walking away doesn't mean giving up. Family should be built on respect, truth, and unconditional love, not manipulation, guilt, or silence. Sometimes silence protects you, other times it destroys you quietly. Like Rachel, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to choose yourself, to choose healing over revenge, truth over comfort, peace over pretending everything's okay. You don't need to scream to be heard. You just need to stand your ground, even when no one else believes in you. Because in the end, true peace doesn't come from forgetting the past. It comes from not letting it define your future. If you've ever been hurt by the people you trusted most, if you've ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace, if you believe truth matters even when it's messy, then you are not alone. Hit subscribe to join the Athena Stories family, where real stories meet real strength and where healing begins with being heard. And don't forget to tap the notification bell, because the next story might just be the one you need to hear to finally feel seen.